Let's start with a simple question. Are you familiar with the name McAfee? The ones who are into protecting their personal computers and other devices surely are familiar with this word. McAfee is one of the most widely used antivirus software providers for Windows PCs and is credited as a pioneering cybersecurity company. But little does anyone know about the man who was behind the success of this big tech company now. The name is John McAfee, and now you know where the software got its name. McAfee is one of Silicon Valley's most well-known pioneers, a driving force in now ubiquitous antivirus technology. So, in this video, we'll be talking about what you need to know about this big person in the computer security world. This is John McAfee, what you need to know. A little bit about McAfee's early life. John McAfee was born in the UK in the mid-1940s. He moved to the US as a child and grew up in Virginia with his father. His early life was likely tough for the young man. His father would beat him mercilessly and killed himself when he was a boy at 15. Pretty tragic start to a life he had. McAfee earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics in 1967 from Roanoke College, Virginia. The younger McAfee was a shrewd entrepreneur at a young age. His first business sold magazines door to door, which he said made him a small fortune. McAfee was a highly intelligent young man with an uncanny knack for programming. Because of his excellent skills and knowledge, he was able to get jobs in reputed organizations. He began working at a company that coded punch card systems in the late 1960s. This taught him the basics of early computing. Using this information, he landed a job at Missouri Pacific Railroad, where he helped the company use a newfangled IBM computer system to help calibrate train schedules. From 1968 to 1970, he worked as a programmer in the Institute for Space Studies of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, shortly known as NASA, which was situated in New York City. To the Silicon Valley. As a man of the tech world, McAfee just had to come to the center of the tech world, which is Silicon Valley, California. McAfee moved to Silicon Valley in the 1970s. He held numerous jobs at various tech companies. In the 1980s, McAfee worked at Lockheed. At the time, computers were still relatively new. In Lockheed Martin, he worked on a classified voice recognition program. It was here that he learned about a self-replicating code designed to copy itself onto any floppy disk inserted and into affected computers. Such a code was called a virus. The initiation. In 1986, the first computer virus hit PCs. When the first major computer virus called Brian hit the world, McAfee decided to fight back. When I first read about the Pakistani Brian virus, I'd never heard of a virus before. Neither had anyone in technology. According to McAfee, it fascinated me, he added. He connected with a programmer who said, "There's big opportunity. We need to do something. We want to write some code to combat this virus." Then he started developing software to combat viruses, as he intuitively sensed the menace of viruses would grow manifold in the coming years. He went on to found his own computer antivirus company, McAfee Associates, in 1987. Leap toward success. By 1989, he had quit his job at Lockheed and devoted himself wholeheartedly to his fast-growing business, which he initially operated from his home in Santa Clara, California. McAfee Associates took off. The threat of viruses increased worldwide, and soon McAfee became a multi-million-dollar business. By the end of the 1980s, the company was making $5 million a year, and some of the biggest companies in the world were using his antivirus platform. McAfee quickly became even more successful, largely because of a computer virus called Michelangelo that hit the scene in 1992. McAfee called it one of the worst viruses to date, estimating it would infect as many as 5 million computers. At the time, computer antivirus programs weren't a product most people bought. But as computers were starting to go a bit mainstream, as for the advantages of it, thanks to Michelangelo, there was a growing fever to protect computers from viruses. Though only tens of thousands of computers were infected, Michelangelo propelled McAfee to go public, parting from his creation. So McAfee and Associates was on a roll in the 90s, and actually, it wouldn't be wrong to say that they were tapping into the burgeoning field of antivirus technology. And it did exactly that, but without its founder. In 1994, McAfee set his sights on greener pastures and resigned from McAfee. 2 years later, he sold his shares, which gave him about $100 million. After his resignation, McAfee went low on the media. He would give young startups advice, lecture at Stanford Graduate School of Business, and also work on projects of his own. There is two most known projects of his. First, a Windows-based instant messaging app called Powwow. By 2008, McAfee's attention had shifted from computer viruses to actual viruses. He moved to the Central America country of Belize to create herb-based antibiotics he said could stop quorum sensing, a mechanism by which bacteria communicate with each other. Starting of downfall. But then came the year 2008. The Great Recession, and like the whole world, it hit this millionaire hard too. The economic collapse caught up to him real bad. According to a report, his fortune had shrunk from $100 million to as little as $4 million. After the various ownership change, California chipmaker Intel bought McAfee's company in 2011 for $7.68 billion. For a time, Intel sought out to dissociate the brand from its controversial founder by folding it into its larger cybersecurity division. When Intel rebranded McAfee as Intel Security, McAfee responded, "I am now everlasting grateful to Intel for freeing me from this terrible association with the worst software on the planet." But the rebranding was short-lived, and in 2016 spun out the cybersecurity unit into a new company called McAfee. In the late 2000s, McAfee decided to sell his land and move to Belize, but things in Belize got hairy. He became convinced that he was being watched all the time. In Belize, he frequented a saloon known as Lover's Bar. He would reportedly go there every day and watch the people go in and out. He slowly withdrew from everything else. He became obsessed with watching the people in his poor part of town. After 6 months, he wrote that he no longer had any connection to society. President candidacy. After having that experience, he somehow managed to get himself back on track. He was so back on track that he ran for U.S. president in both 2016 and 2020. He announced his candidacy for the 2016 race in September of 2015, at first saying he'd start a new party, the Cyber Party. Months later, he changed party and attempted to win the Libertarian Party's nomination, advocating, among other things, a revamping of the U.S.'s cybersecurity system. He ultimately came in third, losing to Gary Johnson. McAfee ran again in 2020, this time running on a platform serving the crypto community, but he dropped out of the race in March of 2020. The finishing blow. McAfee said in 2019 that he had not paid U.S. income taxes for 8 years for ideological reasons. That year, he left the United States to avoid trial, largely living on a mega yacht with his wife and 4 large dogs, 2 security guards, and 7 staff. He offered to help Cuba avoid a U.S. trade embargo using cryptocurrency and sought to run for U.S. president for the Libertarian Party. McAfee's pro-cryptocurrency platform is part of the reason he ran into legal troubles in the U.S. McAfee was arrested in Spain in October 2020, wanted by the Department of Justice for tax evasion. A day later, he was charged by the Securities Exchange Commission with securities fraud. McAfee argued that any attempt to extradite him to the U.S. was politically motivated. After Spain's highest court approved his extradition to the U.S., McAfee was found dead at the Bryans II Penitentiary in northeastern Spain. That's all about the computer security legend and his life that you had to know. Let us know in the comments, what do you think about his life? Here ends our today's topic on John McAfee. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.